Guys, I'm here with Senator Bob Katter from Queensland. You're not Senator, you're in the lower house. In many ways, you've got a lot more power down there. The Prime Minister's struggling for numbers. So we're out here with a massive crowd of people, thousands of people. Bob, you've been very outspoken on freedom of choice with the jab. What's your view of people's concerns here?
Look, I don't, I'm going to say things that, the people here won't like, we went along with the immunisation. We reckon that the government was entitled to a couple of years, to see if they could get rid of it. Well, I can't speak for the other states, but in Queensland, they have been, either they are completely hopelessly useless, or the whole thing has been counterproductive, because we have more cases now than we had a year ago. With all these draconian measures, with 95% immunised, I don't know. The State Health Officer said there were 21 deaths in one day, the highest ever in Queensland. This is last week. Yeah. And most of those that died had been immunised. Yeah. So, what the hell is the big issue about immunisation? Yeah. But, for those that read history books, oh yes, during the Great Depression, we had to have draconian measures, we have to have draconian measures. Yeah. The Jewish bankers have destroyed the world, righto, well, here we go again. In the First World War, those Anglos, they're taking all the oil in the world, in control of all the oil in the world. So, sorry fellas, we all have to now, sick oil, it's on again,
Well, do you welcome the call by the Queensland Premier to drop a lot of the check-in codes and the mask mandates, and among other things?
No, I hope she keeps them, so that she will get the biggest annihilation in Queensland history. So, I reckon it's worth the suffering for another 2 years to give her what she deserves for imposing police state in Queensland. Yeah. And half my staff come from a little town called Mission Beach. I think 5 of the 9 come from Mission Beach. And it's been closed down. North Mission Beach has been closed down. In the 2 highest crime rate capitals in Australia, Cairns and Townsville, they take 8 police out of Cairns and send them down to raid a little tavern in a little tiny town called Mission Beach, right? There's a bloke behind the bar and there's a bloke having a beer. And there's, 8 police cars pulling up everywhere, But we had a meeting with a few of them, and the police car went past. So I raced out to get his registration number, and he thought he got away, but he didn't, because someone got a photograph of the registration number. No, during the Great Depression, when the police started taking all the houses off everybody, the people started publishing their photographs and their names. And, I think that's got to start now, where these draconian, I don't know where the draconian measures are here in Canberra, but, where there are draconian police state measures, they've taken away our cafe, they've taken away our pub, they've taken away a right of assembly, the Tamworth incident, where the 2 councillors and myself were drummed out of the park, with police chasing us. The people doing this, they're not Australians. There were 15,000, and I'd say 1 in 50 had the Eureka flag in Cairns, 1 in 50. And I'd say 1 in 50 of those flags had the Eureka statement underneath it. When oppression becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. And you just keep pushing with your draconian measures and your police state, and bad things are going to happen. And I just want it on record that I warned you, Mr. Governments, and I gave you 2 years. We stood our ground, copped a lot of flack because we're saying, no, look, they should be given time, right? So now you failed hopelessly, 95% immunised, the highest death rate since the bloody thing started is after you got 95% immunised. So much for your immunisation. And I repeat, I was misquoted in the press, so I hope they misquote me again, right? That into our office has come 3 cases of death from immunisation, and I'm not against immunisation, right? But you know, when you look at these figures, 3 people that died straight after immunisation, 3 that have been crippled for life, 2 question marks over them, and 1 who was my old football captain, who got immunised at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He's rushed into ICU the next morning, and the doctor told him as a result of reaction to the immunisation. And he's quite happy for me to have anyone ring him up and confirm what happened. But in light of that, you are entitled, and I mean, she was the great abortionist. She's taken the abortions up to 23,000 a year in Queensland. She said, you must have control of your own body. Well, that's for an exercise in hypocrisy. And those signs were everywhere in Cairns. You know, those signs were everywhere in Cairns. Just proving the hypocrisy. But I don't know about the other states, but I'm just watching a dictator. She said to my son, you will withdraw those statements or I will take all of your support employees off you as a Member of Parliament. I will punish you. That is a threat. It breaches section 142.7 of the Criminal Code in Queensland. You cannot threaten a Member of Parliament. 2 groups, including a majority ALP, said, well, yes, well, clearly she has broken the law, but, you know, but what? But what? She's above the law, is she? You know? Well, the family comes from an overseas country that has a very bad reputation, a very, very bad reputation. And all I can say is I hope she goes back there as soon as possible and live under the conditions that she's imposing upon us here.
When are we going to see some serious competition in Queensland? There was an absolute wipeout in 2020 in the Queensland election for the Liberal National Party. Where do you see things going for Queensland, and who will be the real opposition?
This sort of thing has resulted in the small parties now being on 14%. Well, quite frankly, we don't do so well in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, right? But outside of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, that means we're up around 30%.
Right.
Well, when you get to 30%, you're a small party, you're going to win.
That's
you're going to win. And but they can't see it coming. They think they got a right to rule, you know.
Next question I'll ask.
Sorry.
He was wondering if you trust the democratic process and the voting process that happens.
Well, I mean,
in contrast to what happened in America in the 2020 election, for example.
Oh, I don't know much about American politics, and I don't want to comment on it. But the only thing I will say is that Trump was criticised for his relationship with Russia. Well, nothing enabled me to sleep more peacefully at night than America being friendly with Russia. Right. Well, all right, this numbskull's been elected over there now, so Russia's climbed into bed with China. Oh, that's real good. One wants Ukraine and one wants Taiwan. So that was a real clever spectacular from the loonies over in America. But here, well, I think we got a more entrenched history of democracy here, and I hope the thing will right itself. But you know, it's just how many people died at Eureka before the thing righted itself. You know.
Last year you made the point that the time for the major parties is over, and the minor parties are now going to come in and do something as if it's a balance of power situation. Where do you see the federal election going and the terrible polling for going for Scott Morrison?
Oh, I think the Liberals have gone so bad that I don't think it's going to be a chance of us getting this balance of power. I wish we could, but then again, I don't know. We're on 14%, I suppose. We may be winning a number of seats, but I just think this has gone so bad for the Liberals that not only this, but you know, the signing of the 2050 agreement, whether you agree with it or whether you don't, the politics of it were dreadful for him. And of course, Albo said no coal mines are going to close under Labor government, and no coal-fired power stations. Well, who's the hero of the working class and who's not? You know, well, Morrison was the hero of the working class last election, but I don't think he's going to be this election. And all those marginal seats in North Queensland and in Western Sydney and the coal belt in New South Wales, you know, I think they're all going to go back where they came from.
Do you expect to see a leadership spill between, just as we saw in 2019, with the handoff of Turnbull to Scott Morrison? We've got similar timing with the budget. Budget's in March. Do you think we'll see Dutton in power or someone else?
Well, it's Hawke was the analogy I was looking at. You know, it was only 3 months before the election. They removed, and actually he was leading in the polls, but they still removed him and put Hawke in just on the eve of the election. And we did that in Queensland. We had some very bad stuff going on in the police force in Queensland. We had a big inquiry called the Fitzgerald Inquiry. Police group had murdered 42 people in Queensland, and we had to take them on, and it was pretty ugly what happened.
Yeah.
But in that election, we deliberately timed our change of leadership till 3 months before the election when it had maximum impact.
Yeah.
And in spite of Fitzgerald Inquiry, I think we almost survived that election,
Can I just pivot to why the people are here? And this will be the last question. Graham Hood's just gone inside with a list of demands, including freedom from masking of kids, freedom from the jab in the workforce, freedom from passports, freedom from vaccine passports, that is, freedom to travel across the state borders, especially for WA, and also kids not having to be jabbed going into the school and halting that jab rollout until at least the trials are done. What's your view on that list? I know there's a few things, but
I don't regret having given the government 2 years, right? And we didn't back them, but we didn't go against them. We just said they're entitled to have a go to get rid of it. And I'm thinking about tuberculosis and Chifley. I'm thinking about polio. I'm thinking about those things, and I'm old enough to remember those. So I'm thinking they're entitled to have a fair go. But in fairness to our position, our little party's position, it's mutated to a harmless cold. Now,
Omicron.
we're closing the whole town of bloody North Mission Beach has been closed down, police raided, people terrified, police coming in. And look at this. Is this Australian? I looked at that and I just shook my head.
Yeah.
Is this Australia? Is this Australia? Is this Australia?
And you have a crime wave in Queensland, so they're diverting police resources to things that aren't necessarily a priority.
In Townsville, which is a town of 250,000 people, not all that much smaller than Canberra, within 15 years, every single car will be stolen in Townsville. 200 in 1 week. It's not a crime wave. Crime has taken over.
Right.
And they can't put them in jail because there's no room in the jails.
Right.
The jails are all full in Queensland, right? But they're enough time, they can take the resources. I'm sleeping peacefully in my motel room. I wake up the next morning and my $780 watch, which I got at a sale for $260, was gone. Because I shut the door, but I failed to lock it. It was double lock and I failed to lock it. But you can't even sleep peacefully in a motel with a big fence around it and gates locked.
Yeah.
You still can't sleep peacefully. But yet they can take these resources away. And also, you're taking money resources. It's costing a huge amount of money. And money that's needed in the hospitals in Queensland. Half the towns in Queensland, there's no outpatients now. So don't get sick after 5 o'clock, or don't get sick on the weekends, which you'll be a goner, mate. But they can find the resources. And look, I looked at that lady in charge of health in Queensland, and I've looked at the Premier, and if that's not jackbooted fascism, I don't know what is. Really, they look it, they sound it, and the more you criticise them or question them, the more they, will and it's Italy in the bloody 30s,
I know I said last one, but I'm trying to fill the time. What's your message to the Prime Minister with the upcoming election and the budget?
I obviously want it to be close, and really the way things are going, it's not going to be close. Right. And so they've got to do something. But, on the signing of 2050, and then Albo coming out with his statement that there'll be no coal mines closed. It was quite brilliant on his part, right? Yeah. But, the Prime Minister replied, don't worry about it, Bob. Well, I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about you going down to such an extent I'm not going to have no leverage. I'm not worried about you. But, he said, I said that 2.5 years ago. Yes, and nobody remembers it, right? And also, you've overruled it. You can't have 2050 and then say, we're not going to close the coal mines. You've got to have it both ways, you know, and just it destroys your credibility. You know, it's not what is reality. It's about perceptions, and the perceptions are terrible here. But Albo's made sure that his perceptions of him are pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Are you worried about the Greens holding that balance of power and really pushing the country to that far radical?
I think we'll do better than the Greens.
Yeah? Oh, okay, wow.
I'm pretty confident.
In Queensland specifically?
We'll do better than the Greens.
Right.
Well, I'm just looking. That 14% was all over Australia, and if you take out the big cities, well, there's a lot of potent force there.
Right.
I mean, I don't like Mark Latham, and I think he's the most unlikable person. Right. But he's formidable. I wouldn't write him off as a lightweight.
Yeah.
In New South Wales, and his effect, and all of Western New South Wales has left the LNP.
That's right.
The whole bloody lot,
Yeah.
You could order. My son-in-law just got elected mayor of one of the towns. So I said, mate, you're right on the Mason-Dixon line, you know. On that side, the morons are still voting for what they think is the country party. The complete opposite of the country party.
Pushing abortion.
On that side, these people know what they're doing. You know? No, it's deregulation. The farmers in Australia have been cut to pieces. We had 270,000 farmers, and a bloke called John Anderson, who was always looking, and he was captain of King's College in Sydney. And
this is awkward for me as a friend of John Anderson's.
he deregulated, all of the industries in Queensland, all the rural industries, and they were just cut to pieces, shattered, destroyed, and there's not much left. He said, we only need 170,000 farmers, and we have 270,000. Well, geez, John, you solved that problem, because we're down now to 84,000. 200,000 farmers have vanished under you, privatising and giving a free kick to every subsidised product from overseas coming in and whacking us,
Has he moved on that, or does he still hold that opinion? Like he has no
regrets. Look, I don't want to denigrate the man. He's
actually a personal friend.
Found God, and all that's good. You most certainly had lost him before.
Right.
That would be my comment.
Right. Well, I've got it now. I've got to go to John for a reply now. I can't just, I can't just do this. Oh well, I think that didn't actually record that part. But anyway, Bob, thank you for your time. It was a real pleasure. That was funny.